Oh, you guys can't see me, but I bet you can hear me. Oh gosh, I forgot I was fixing something. Hey, how about that? I'm here. Alright, can you guys hear me okay? Please put a 1 in the chat. Let me make sure my settings are good this time and I can see people. Oh, I forgot one more thing here. 1 second, guys. Close. There we go. Awesome. Okay, it works today. Thank goodness. Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today we're going to go over a part 2 of Ellen Greenberg. We covered her case, I think, last week. It is a wild case. They ruled it as a self-inflicted. I can't use the S word. But she was stabbed over 20 times, and they ruled it a self-inflicted wound. Yet clearly there's plenty of evidence, which we're going to go over today, that clearly suggests that it was not self-inflicted and that there was likely a murderer on the loose and has gotten away with the crime since 2011, over 13 years now. So we're going to go over that case. I do apologize, Rebecca, and anybody. YouTube takes all caps as a negative. Usually a lot of times we'll have a lot more people in the chat, so if we have like all caps free, then if there's a bunch of people with all caps, again, it takes it as a negative. And we were able to kind of like find an exception if there was like certain people that had like a sight problem. But for some reason we were only able to make that exception for one person, and then Nightbot would not allow us to do it again. So I do apologize, Rebecca. Unfortunately, Nightbot's locked in with the all caps thing, so I do apologize. I do appreciate you being here, but yeah, once I go live, any all caps will block your message. But again, I do appreciate everybody taking the time to watch the show. Before we get started, we always like to get back by featuring the missing. And today we have Zachary DeMoss, who is missing out of Kosaka, Idaho. Hope I pronounced that right. He went missing August 11th, 2024, so 5 days ago. In the notes it says he went missing in Idaho and reported missing in Idaho and Montana. Zachary DeMoss was riding with a group of bikers on a black Kawasaki Vulcan 2000 with ape hanger handlebars. This is way too much for him. I'm not a bike rider. Black Harley, saddlebags, and camping gear. The last contact with him was Kosaka, Idaho, where he had given the group a where he given a group a head start because he is a more experienced rider. His bike was last seen pulled off the road at Eagle Mountain Trailhead on Route 12 at approximately 4:30 p.m. After passing him, the group stopped down the road for 5 minutes. When they returned to check on him, he was gone. Wow. That's kind of creepy. I mean, only for 5 minutes and come back and he's gone. That's scary. Been missing for 5 days. So again, Zachary DeMoss, missing 5 days now. Just 24 years old, 6'4". So he's kind of a bigger guy, 6'4", 300 pounds. So if he is out there, maybe got injured or something, I think you'd be able to kind of pick him out from a crowd because he's a tall guy with a nice bike. Hopefully, family and friends hear from him soon. So please share his case there, and we'll move on to today's show. Again, thank you to all my wonderful mods, Karen, D, Jocelyn, good to see you. All my wonderful members and patrons, I appreciate your guys' support. I can't do this show without you guys, and so I appreciate everything you guys have done for me over the years. All right, let's get into today's story. Again, we've covered this story once last week. We'll kind of go over the recap for anybody that's not familiar with this case. There was interviews done with a friend of the family, or actually a friend of Ellen, and then also the alleged security guard that was supposedly with him that he had spoken to about the locks, which is there's a huge discrepancy there. There's just so many red flags. I cannot see how the police detectives got this wrong. I mean, the medical report, which I have, I actually got the report for hers right here. It's not too detailed because I'm assuming since they ruled it a self-inflicted that they didn't. Why is it not zooming in? It's weird. And it's not as detailed as if it was like a homicide, but there's a lot of interviews. I'm sure there's probably more stuff than what's here, but there's just so much that's missing as far as like interviews and whose statements coincide with others, or do they conflict? And clearly, if they would have done some just basic interviewing with family, friends, anybody that was associated with the case, there's clearly holes in what Sam Goldberg had told them. So let's get into the story. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Chris, Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover true crime, mystery to the missing. So here is Ellen Ray Greenberg. Let me adjust this real quick here. So everybody can see it. There we go. And I got my my thing working today, which is good. So this is Ellen Ray Greenberg, 27 years old at the time of this tragedy. She enjoyed her job. She was a first grade teacher at Juanita Park Academy, which is a diverse school in North Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ellen had been handpicked by the principal to be there when it opened 4 years prior. Ellen was dedicated to her students and her career, and during that time she earned 2 master's degrees, all while teaching full-time, which is pretty amazing. But sadly, Ellen and her fiance, who we'll talk about here in a minute, Sam, they lived in an apartment complex called the Venice Lofts on Venice Island, just outside the city. And on January 27, 2011, she would be found with multiple stab wounds, over 20 stab wounds in her chest, neck, and head. Absolutely brutal. Ellen and Ellen and a TV producer, Sam Goldberg, had met 3 years earlier. Now, I've also heard stories. So I've heard this one that they met 3 years earlier, But then the friend says that they grew up as friends. They've known each other since they were like 5. So I'm not sure on that, but sounds like they maybe reconnected 3 years prior. I think is what is actually reported here. So they had known each other since children, and then I think they reconnected 3 years prior to 2011, and then it eventually would get engaged. They had a date set for August 2011. They were neck deep in wedding planning, and on January 27th, Sam was the one who found Ellen's body after kicking down the front door, which had a security latch on the apartment. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we will show that, but that's going to be one of the huge discrepancies. He would also make a 911 call, which according to some, Sam's behavior on the 911 call sounded off, which we're going to listen to. Although Ellen was found with over 20 stab wounds, her cause of death, eventually by the medical examiner, would be ruled self-inflicted. Of course, I can't use the S word, but of course, this was a huge shock to the family, and has now been picking up a lot of traction in the news because the family has been clearly outspoken since day one that this is clearly she wasn't suffering from depression. She suffered a little bit of anxiety and some depression, but she wasn't in that kind of state. So the family felt this this was off. So here's the timeline just a little bit, and we'll go even deeper into it. The day prior, January 26, 2000. Actually, that is the day it happened. I think I have the 27th. That is the wrong date. I think January 26th is the right date. January 26, 2011, Ellen headed to work as usual in the morning at around 7 to 8 a.m. She spoke to her mother during the 15-minute drive as she headed to the school. Mother said Ellen sounded upbeat. They were anticipating a blizzard that day, so Philadelphia schools would eventually close early that day. So Ellen would head home just after a half day of working. She stopped at a gas station around 1:30 and was at her apartment shortly after. At around 4:45, Sam told Ellen that he was going to work out in the complex gym. So a lot of apartments, they'll have extra amenities like swimming pools. Some have gyms, some have everything. This one, I guess, had both. Sam texted Ellen multiple times after he got done with the gym. I think he spent maybe 30 to 45 minutes, which we're going to talk about as well. As he came back, the door was locked, so he had called and text messaged her multiple times. She did not respond, and we'll look at those text messages because they're kind of interesting. He clearly sounded frustrated. He would then return 45 minutes later. Now, according to Sam, he goes down. So this would have been after 5:30. He would have gone down to the apartment office. And according to Sam, he says he spoke to one of the security guards or management, and they had told him, he needs to get in because he has a key to the door because obviously they live there together, but there's also a security latch. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's one of those things if you go to a hotel, motel, they have that extra latch that, you can open the door a few inches. But due to the latch, if it's obviously engaged, you can't open it up further. Only way to disengage it is if the person on the inside unlatches it. So apparently that was latched, and so even though he had the key to the apartment, he could not get in. So he claims that he went down there, spoke with the security guard, and apparently the security guard, who will listen to the interview, according to Sam, said that the security guard told him it'd be okay for him to just break open the security lodge. So according to Sam, after he broke into the apartment, he saw Ellen, which we'll look at a floor plan. As soon as you go in, because it's an apartment, it's not very big. as you go in, open the door to your right would have been the kitchen. According to him, she was in the kitchen, lying on her back, kind of in a seated position. Her head was resting against the corner cabinets. She was covered in blood. And we'll talk about the lock. But then, so he would make a 911 call. And this is just beyond strange. And again, I know we kind of covered this, and we're going to go over much more stuff later on. There's more interviews with the friend and the security guard. Very interesting stuff. But if you haven't heard this 911 call, it is red flags everywhere.
Help! I need a emergency now. I just walked to my apartment. My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere.
What is the address?
4601 Flat Rock Road. Please come. Help.
4601
Flat Rock Road.
Is this a house or apartment?
Oh no. Oh no.
Apartment.
It's an apartment.
What apartment number?
Please hurry, please.
Where is she bleeding from?
I don't know. I can't tell.
No. So you have to calm yourself down in order to get you some help.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm looking at her right now. I can't see anything. There's nothing broken. She's bleeding. Ellie!
You don't know where she's bleeding from? Can't see where the blood's coming from?
I think her head. I think she hit her head, But it's everywhere.
Okay,
it's everywhere.
She might have fallen. Do you know what happened?
She may have slipped. There's blood on the table. Her face is a little purple.
Okay, hold on for rescue for her. Stay on.
Keep in mind, she was stabbed over 20 times. And this is the worst acting job ever, and it gets worse. Now, apparently, this picture here is actually taken from, from detectives. So they believe that she was actually cutting up some fruit, because you can actually see what appears to be an orange cut in half. The knife that was found was, your typical kitchen knife, serrated edge. I forget the actual centimeters it is, but she was stabbed with that over 20 times. And according to Sam, he's broke into the apartment, he finds her, and he's not sure what's wrong with her.
Philadelphia Fire Department 842, what's the address? No,
4601 Flat Rock Road. Please hurry.
4601 Flat Rock?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's wrong?
I went downstairs to go work out. I came back up. The door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering. So after about a half hour, I decided to break it down. I see her now, just on the floor with blood. She's not responding.
So sorry to pause this. We're gonna talk about the door latch. I know we did last time, but I did a little bit more research because that door latch bugs the hell out of me. And I wondered, maybe when they took the picture, maybe they put it back up or something. But that is not the case. And anyway, we'll get into that later.
Okay, is she breathing? Look at her chest. I need you to calm down, and I need you to look at her chest. It's really.
I really don't think she is.
Listen to me. Someone's on the way. Look at her chest. Is she flat on her back?
She's on her back.
Okay, right there. He says she's on her back. When they find her, she's in a seated position. Keep that in mind. He just literally said she asked, is she flat on her back? Because obviously she's going to ask her to do CPR. And he claims she is on her back.
Okay, look at her chest and tell me if it's going up and down, up and down.
I don't see her moving.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I don't.
Okay, I can tell you what to do, okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat on her...
God.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, okay.
Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there?
I have to, right?
Okay, so get her...
I have to, right? I mean, I guess. It's only my loved one here, my fiance.
Flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off. Okay? Kneel down by her side.
Oh, my God. Ellie, please.
Listen, you can't freak out, sir, because you
Okay, I'm trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Oh, my God. She stabbed herself.
How in the hell do you get that from opening up her zipper? Now, I don't know how you couldn't see that knife sticking out of her. Clearly it was. I mean, it makes no goddamn sense. But what he says next is, well, this too, right here. Just immediately goes to she stabbed herself. If I came in, broke into my apartment and saw my fiance stabbed, bloodied, and then found a knife stabbed into herself, unless she was like severely depressed, and I knew she'd been depressed for, months or whatever, and, maybe a hint of that, but like,
Where?
She fell with a knife. Oh no, her knife's sticking out.
And then I know people do fall on knives, but this knife was apparently close to her heart, in her chest. I'm sure people have done that, but to deduce that just from that, is just amazing.
What?
There's a knife sticking out of her heart.
Oh, she stabbed herself?
I guess so. I don't know where she fell on it. I don't know.
Okay, well, don't touch it.
Okay, so I just let her here now. I mean, what do I do?
No, I mean, you can't. If the knife is at her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR at this time.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Police, which operator?
277.
Is someone coming here?
Yes, they are. You said 4601 Flat Rock, right?
Yes.
Okay, someone's on the way. And the knife is still inside?
Wait, so what?
The knife is still inside of her?
Yes, I didn't take it out.
And he actually laughs right there. It's just terrible.
The knife is still inside of her?
Yes, I didn't take it out.
Was it her chest or what area did
It's in her chest. It looks like it's right in her heart.
Okay, someone's on the way out there. Okay, just get.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay,
How old is
thank you.
she?
She's 27.
27. And there's no sign of life at all? Like, bend her to her arm.
No, please don't be. What?
Bend her to her arm and tell me if she responds to pain.
She's Ellie. She's not. Her arm and her hands are still warm. I don't know if that means, but there's blood everywhere.
I know, but you can't, and the knife is still inside of her. How far? Can you see how far it went in?
It looks pretty deep.
Okay.
It looks it's a long knife.
Don't touch anything.
Yeah, don't touch anything, okay?
I'm not touching anything. I can't believe this, though.
So wait, it was just you there with her?
I can't believe this.
We're the only ones here.
And she ran in the door, you said latched it shut?
No, I went downstairs to work out, and when I came back up, the door was latched.
Oh.
Like it was, it wasn't like it was, it was like locked from the inside, and I'm yelling, so I'm
Was your house
yelling
broken into?
No.
So there's no sign of a break-in?
No sign of a break-in at all. I mean, there will be when you get here, because I had to break the latch, but to get in.
Okay, 4601 Flat Rock, and it's...
Yeah, I think it's the 6th floor because the 601, usually, because I've lived in apartments since I was 18, usually one of the numbers corresponds with the floor that you're on. Usually, not all the time. But I think it is. I think it was the 6th floor. Yeah, with the 601. That's probably pertaining to the 6th floor. Oh, I see why you're saying 4 or 6. Yeah, so you know. Yeah, I think it was the 6th floor. Correct me if I'm wrong in chat. Yeah, because it's a pretty tall building. But if I recall, 6 stands out. I could be wrong on that.
It's a house, right?
It's an apartment. Apartment.
Okay, that'll help.
Oh my god. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
He says he's so full of shit. Yeah. Yeah, so if you guys haven't heard that, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Moonchow says he's so nonchalant, even laughs, horrific. Yeah, I mean, I don't see how these detectives could have gotten it so wrong. And I mean, that's just the 911 call. I mean, just huge red flags just in that alone. Now, for those that are new to the case, we'll learn that Sam has connections. His uncle's a lawyer and I believe a judge. Obviously, he was a television producer, so I'm assuming he had some connections. Even the medical examiner in the beginning, we'll read the report, not the whole thing, but just kind of the summary. They even say, they give, okay, this is probably why it's not a self-inflicted, thing, and why it's a homicide. And they originally ruled it as a one, but I don't want to get ahead of myself here. But
inside the apartment, police found no signs of an intruder.
So we'll go over a little bit more of the recap. Look at the locked door. Again, there's interview with the friend of Ellen, and then the security guard as well. And there's just so many discrepancies in this case. It's just mind-boggling.
Or that Ellen tried to flee. Her body was in the kitchen just inside the front door with her head, neck, and shoulders propped up against the corner cabinets. There was no blood spilled anywhere beyond the kitchen.
So yeah, there's the floor plan. Oh, I see what I did as I've got it twice here. But yeah, the entry here is right here. So you would come in. I've just got it blown up backwards here. But yeah, on the left here would be, you come in and just right there would be Ellen here. Then the living, dining room, bedroom on opposite sides, which is nice. If you have roommates, and it looks like they have their own, looks like two bedroom, 2 bath. Those are nice.
She was pronounced dead at 6:40 p.m. Despite there being no suicide note, the crime scene was treated as one. The apartment door had been locked by a solid bar door guard, which was pulled out and hanging by the screws, clearly having been forced by someone, Sam presumably, breaking through from the outside.
Rebecca, did they not have any cameras? Now, I think the security guard said they did, which blows my mind because, and I'm sure it's too late now to go back, they probably recorded over, because they would have known that he never went down, which something we learned in the interview down the road, with the security guard is Sam never went to the security guard. And I was kind of thinking back, I've lived in apartments most of my life, and I should have known better in some of these things that are mentioned that I didn't even think about the first time covering this. And we'll talk about that. But the door latch, which we'll go over, and we'll even see an experiment done by Gavin Fish, who's covered this story, has done a great job. But the huge thing that's a red flag is this thing's still in there. It's kind of hard to see, and if we get time, we'll take a look at it, but it's not like it's just hanging up there. So these door latches, they come 2 separate pieces. One goes on the trim, I guess, usually is where you see it, and then you have another piece that goes to the door. But the piece that would likely been broken off would have been the one that's attached to the trim, which we talked about. But anyway, the red flag here is the thing. He says he kicks it open, right? He doesn't say like he kicked it and he compromised it to where this part like bent in, and then he was able, since he kind of compromised it enough that he could like unlatch it, because that's kind of looks like what happened here. But in all of his like interviews and stories and the people that he told, he kicked that thing down. So if that was the case, one of these 2 pieces should not even be hanging up right now. If that got kicked down, the door was kicked open, one of the 2 sides, brackets should be gone. So it looks like he either unscrewed it
He remained on the
or
scene
used
for
a
couple
flathead or both. But we'll go over that here in a minute.
The apartment was well kept and tidy. Investigators reviewed Sam's key fob records and security videos to see if everything matched what his fiancé had told them. They said it did. The videos also showed no signs of unauthorized access of entrances by anyone around the time of Ellen's death. There were also no defensive wounds found on Ellen's body as an indication of a struggle.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe they thought, and that's not all cases, stabbing cases, that there's going to be defensive wounds, but maybe that was one of the things that detectives thought, oh, well, there's no defensive wounds. But we're going to learn that she might not even been alive, or at least conscious, when the stabbing occurred. And what is the main things that we've seen when it comes to, a victim that's multiply stabbed? It's usually a lover. I guarantee you that's statistics number 1. When a victim is brutally stabbed, it's somebody the victim knows, a lover or another family member, because it's personal. And I just can't, blows my mind how they didn't connect this. Jennifer, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Member for 27 months. I can't believe it's been that long. That's so awesome. Thank you, Chris, for all you do. Loves. Good to see you, Jennifer. Hope you have a great weekend. Appreciate you coming in. So again, here's a picture. They think that she was cutting some fruit when she was attacked. Now, it seems that Sam maybe had the day off, so maybe he was home all day, because it doesn't mention him. There's not really any mention of where he was at before. So I'm assuming, being a television producer, maybe he had that day off. Of course, they had the snowstorm coming in. He was clearly there just before her tragedy. So I'm assuming they were probably together. Well, even though she went to work, but, he was home, I should say. And then when she got back, he went to the gym, allegedly, which I think the gym was really just kind of something to use as an alibi. Maybe if they were going to go the route, if they didn't believe the route of the self-inflicted, maybe that him going to the gym was kind of him to use an alibi as that somebody broke in while he was gone. That's kind of my initial thoughts on that.
Wounds were identified in the back of the head and the side of the scalp that police began to question their initial assessment. Medical examiner Marlon Osborne conducted the autopsy on the 27th of January. He identified wounds labeled...
So, of course, he had multiple wounds in the spinal cord, which was mentioned that they thought, well, maybe she could have severed a nerve and she wasn't feeling anything, and that's why she was able to do that. But then recent experts have come out and say, no, if she would have stabbed herself where it's, labeled that she stabbed herself, that would have actually caused her to experience even more pain because, it's hitting the nerve. And then they also found what appeared to be hesitation wounds. Now, that's a little bit more common with self-inflicted tragedies, is they find what's called hesitation wounds, where a victim, or not a victim, but a person that takes their life will kind of test themselves and kind of poke themselves to kind of, build up maybe the courage, but no defensive wounds.
But these were multiples and not a single wound. But 10 are located on the back of her neck. Some were nicks, not very deep, but others penetrated about 3 inches deep. He records the manner of death as a homicide.
Actually, you know what? You're right, Ellen. It is one... It doesn't look like 6 floors. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. They were at the top, so it is... Maybe it's a 4th floor, unless there's 2 below, which I doubt it. It's probably the parking. So yeah, it is probably the 4th floor. I'm sorry, I did say the 6th, but now looking at it... yeah, I'm only seeing 4 windows, so
police returned to the apartment to have another look around.
I stand corrected.
But even after doing so, they refused to reverse position to match the conclusions of the medical examiner. They say it's suspicious, to be sure, but convincing some...
And we're going to look at this real quick. So, Emmy originally reported it. I'm just going to read it's just a little bit here, but it blew my mind. Let's see. Why is this not working right? That is weird. Well, I'll read it. I'm sorry, I want to make it bigger, but I don't know why that's not... Oh, okay, now it does it. That's weird. Okay, let me find it. Just read the medical report. Not all the stab wounds, but what their summary was. And it's clear as day. Okay, now I gotta back it up. Of course. Okay, oh, there it is. I found it. Perfect. Stopped right on it. So, medical legal question. Is that how you pronounce that? Is that a word? Medical legal question? I've never seen that word. Anyway, so it says self-inflicted stab wounds can rarely be multiple. Self-inflictings by stabbing are becoming less frequent, with simpler choices being drugs, hanging, or gunshot. Cutting of the wrist and throat is often associated with self-inflicted, whereas stab wounds to the back are unlikely to be self-inflicted. So here in their report, they're stating like this doesn't add up. A homicide usually involves multiple stab wounds to the side, back, and or stomach. In a self-inflicted, there may be additional cuts across the wrist or tentative stabbings, which is also known as hesitation stabbings, to see if it will hurt or work up the courage. Then there will usually only be one wound, and most likely in the chest. That's kind of interesting. I guess if it's not a wrist, because I would think wrist, well, it does. It says wrist and neck are the most common, and then I think, is that how it would kind of put it, right? Okay, yeah, so that's what it says. So wrist and throat are most common with that kind of cutting. And then if there's more than one wound, then it's likely in the chest. But keep in mind, she did this over 20 times, so just ridiculous. Let's see, was there anything else in here? Oh yeah, the locations of the stab wounds, high up on the back of the neck and lower back of the head, are also unlikely for self-inflicted wounds. A self-inflicted victim will frequently leave a note. There was none. There was also no indication that the victim was, being depression. Family and friends don't mention anything about that. There, just kind of summarizing because the words I can't use. Basically depressed. History of depression, basically, in a nutshell, is what it's saying. And the family and friends of Ellen said she had some anxiety because of school, and but she got on some medication and she was feeling better, and yeah. And we'll come back to what they found on her computer, which is kind of conflicting. Brian Enton went into the very apartment. Oh, I missed that. I was trying to pull different stuff. I did a video earlier today, so I was doing multiple videos. People who lived there had no idea. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's terrible.
In the months leading up to her death, Ellen had not been quite acting herself. Her parents noted a marked change in her demeanor from the bubbly and outgoing daughter they'd always known. Ellen had become anxious and unsettled. When asked about it, she mentioned only stresses at work. Everything was fine at home. But when Ellen asked her parents only months before her wedding if she could move home with them, it raised some red flags. Sandy suggested she see a therapist for anxiety, which she did.
So yeah, she was given Klonopin, which is for anxiety, sometimes even muscle relaxer, and then Ambien. I'm sure many people have heard of that. That's to help sleep. So nothing major like barbiturates, I think that's what they called, for heavy depression, which sometimes can lead to further depression. Sometimes when people get on that for the first time, it'll actually make their symptoms worse before they get better. Sometimes they just make them worse and they have to take them off and try something else. Mental health is a bitch. Cindy says at least one of those wounds happened after she died. Yeah, they think many of them could have been, I forget how she words it, but we do have that interview with the lady that talks about that. After they detectives are kind of checking out the scene and doing their basic interviews, and then I'm sure probably Sam had some persuading to do. And in short, the medical examiner, although was leaning towards, looks like homicide, and even puts in his report like, okay, this is what you would see in self-inflicted wounds, and this isn't common for self-inflicted, but yet homicide, this is common, especially for lovers, or just domestic. But they were not buying that, and they were pushing, is this going to be a self-inflicted? So they pushed to have the medical examiner change his cause of death.
She was anxious. She was found in a locked apartment with no evidence of a struggle. Neighbors would tell police that aside from Sam banging on the door, there had been no sounds of a disturbance. No other person's DNA was on the knife. Detectives believed the shallow punctures on her body were test or hesitation wounds made as Ellen considered stabbing herself to death. In addition, a search of Ellen's laptop returned traces of a series of searches performed relating.
Yeah, so I had to pull that because it uses the S word. But these are the some of the things they found on her computer. But if you take a closer look, there was a pretty simple explanation because, and this is also something they used to, for their theory that it was self-inflicted. But, there's one search that they highlight suffocation, and then another one comes up. And this is probably the only one that really, I would say, red flag. And that's, I can't use the S word, but self-inflicted methods. And then the rest are Zoloft, Prozac side effects, sertraline, which I think is a barbiturate. Prozac, I'm not sure, is maybe a barbiturate, which is helps with depression. Then one girl electrocuted to death by trying to Twitter in the bath. So it just seems like she may have pulled up a article where somebody. Oh, that's always been one of my biggest fears is being electrocuted in the bathtub. Having like a radio back in the day, when we didn't have all this wireless Bluetooth stuff. That was definitely one of my big fears because I love taking baths. But anyway, I digress. Many of these, nothing were really like heavy looking up, like, how to take your life. Only other one was this painless self-inflicted, which they believe all these were probably just kind of in the metadata and it was not really what she was looking for. It just kind of came across and popped up in there because they were actually searching for these specific terms, yet they weren't really, looking into how she arrived at these, websites. And I just think they just took it at face value and didn't really know what this data meant. And just said, oh, look, there's, some history of her looking up, certain situations that cause self-harm. And there's, there's your motive, I guess. So we already talked about that.
Possible damage to Ellen's spinal cord that could have left her incapacitated and unable to inflict the subsequent wounds on herself. Initially, the autopsy report had a single line relating to this potential injury.
Yeah, I couldn't say that.
Neuropathologist Dr. Lucy Rourke examined the spinal cord and concluded there is no defect of the spinal cord. However, when contacted directly, Dr. Rourke, a well-respected, now retired neuropathologist, stated...
concluded that it was a suicide based upon a report that he said came from a Dr. Lucy Rourke, which he cannot produce, which nobody has ever produced or seen.
So in the report, there's just one line where a neurologist had talked about examining Ellen and something about the stab wound to the spinal cord. And then when interviewed later on, she doesn't even remember, examining Ellen and making this statement. And I just can't see how you would know or not know something like that, not have it documented and reported.
She, Dr. Rourke, says she never did. And it is referenced in one sentence in the report that Dr. Osborne does that then changes the finding from homicide to suicide.
According to the detective from the original investigation, the police had been told that the spinal cord sheath was hit, but the cord was not severed. They were told as a result of this that Ellen most likely went numb, thus allowing or enabling her to stab herself repeatedly. An expert consulted in 2000.
How would she know that? Anyway. And so they actually think that would actually cause the opposite, would actually cause her much discomfort. And,
17 by the Greenbergs disagreed. Her injuries, the report says, would have given Ellen severe pain, cranial nerve dysfunction, and traumatic brain signs. These injuries were not enabling. They were more arguably incapacitating.
Kiki Ray, good to see you. Has anyone dug into where the coroner or medical examiner went after Ellen's case? He went to... went to Florida and examined the Stoneman Douglas School shooting in Florida. As far as, to be honest, Kiki, this is the second time diving into this case, and I know there's some other channels that have deep dived this case. I try to cover a lot of cases, so I haven't dug that deep, so I don't know, to be honest, unless someone in chat does. But here's the timeline. So I went through the report to get as much as I could. I'm sure if they did proper interviews, and maybe there's some out there I could add to this timeline, but just from the basic document that they have, this is the timeline, and there's definitely some discrepancies. And so here we have our last known, basically, where we know that Ellen is still alive. So at 2:33, so remember, she comes home after school. It goes to the gas station. She makes an outgoing phone call at 2:33. It's a 30-second call. It's kind of redacted, so I can't tell who she called. Then really the last known thing that she does is at 3:47 she does an outgoing text to somebody, but again, it's redacted, so I don't know. Could be to Sam, could be to somebody else, I'm not sure. Then we have, so anywhere from really almost up to 4 p.m. until 5:36 p.m., so almost a 2-hour window, is when she was likely murdered. So we have Sam going to the gym at 4:45. Now, I thought this was interesting. He claims that he got back, and he's not sure. He says 5:15 or 5:30. So if it was 5:15, that would give him a 30-minute workout. Now, I guess if you're just doing some cardio, I guess that makes sense. I know, usually people work out 45 minutes to an hour. I know some people do much more. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The workout was only 30 minutes, maybe 45 if he came back at 5:30. Again, if he was doing cardio, I guess it wouldn't be too much to look into, but I thought that was kind of interesting. And he comes back, and the apartment's locked. At 5:15 or 5:30 is when he come back. Now, between that time period, we'll just say 5:30 to 5:54, so basically almost 6 o'clock, an hour and a half, or half an hour, he is standing there messaging Ellen, apparently, and calling her and asking her, and we're going to look at the text messages if you haven't seen these. Let's see, I think they're at the top here. There it is. So they're not much, but for about 30 minutes, I think there was, how many phone calls? There was 2. I'll look at it here. But yeah, a couple phone calls to Ellen from Sam, and then a bunch of messages. One says, hello. Second one says, open the door. What are you doing? I'm getting pissed. Hello. You better have an excuse. What the F? Ah. You have no idea. So, some weird text messages. And I was thinking, I'm like, remember, he has a key to this apartment, so he can open the door a little bit, right? So, I'm curious, did he ever mention, see, this is why they need to have properly interviewed him, because, they could have asked him, well, why you're at the door, and the door, because remember, the lock itself is not locked. It's just the security latch, which means he can open the door a crack. So, it's not like this big house that they're in. They're just in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm assuming the second bedroom is, probably an office, and she's likely either in the living room or kitchen area. I mean, it could be in the bedroom or bathroom, but but he's there for 30 minutes apparently. Like, you would think, like, he would have mentioned, yeah, I was trying to scream for her through the door, but there's none of that. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. So then, after not getting a response, he then goes down to the security guard. Now, this is what's interesting is, remember, he returns at 5:30, and after these multiple text messages and phone calls, sometime between 5:30 and 6 is when, or maybe a little bit after 6, is when he apparently goes down to the office to get management or maintenance, so they can come and unlock the door, which I guess they would have to have a special device to be able to get that done. But I've seen that done on YouTube. Anyway, but of course we're going to find out he never did that. And if they would have done proper police investigation, they would have known that the security guard, if they would have interviewed him, well, they did apparently, but they didn't believe him. But according to Sam, they told him, hey, why don't you just go and kick the lock, you have my permission to bust down the door, which, now thinking about it, I'm like, one, it's likely after 5:30, 6 p.m., and most apartments, they usually shut down about 5:30. Now, sometimes they're kind of there for a half an hour, but usually maintenance is gone. Now some places will have emergency maintenance guy, but usually they're just on call. So I thought that was interesting. And then look here, Sam doesn't call 911 until 6:33. So he gets back into the apartment at 5:30, but will not make a 911 call for almost over an hour, which I thought was really strange. Yeah, the uncle was a lawyer and then I think became a judge, something like that. Again, this is only my second time on this case. I know there's a lot more to deep dive on this.
The front door latch that had been forced open from the outside by Sam proves, in theory, that Ellen was in the apartment alone. The Greenberg team has argued that there are multiple videos online explaining how to manipulate a swing bar lock from the outside. Now, I've not seen any of these, but that's probably true. In addition, there is reason to believe that the relationship between Sam and Ellen was less joyful than she was letting on to her friends and her family in the months leading up to her death.
Yeah.
There were various injuries on her body that were indicative of bruises and healing.
Okay, let's go back to that. So there are bruises all over her body, and those bruises were from maybe days, weeks before she was attacked.
They weren't part of that night.
Were not part of that night.
If you know anything about this type of problem, it's very unlikely that the victim is going to say anything to you. Mm-hmm. And we think she was a victim.
So another issue is she had many bruises on her, which they believe happened prior to homicide, which means she was most likely, obviously being, there was some kind of physical abuse, abusive relationship that they may have been going through. In the interview, I think they mentioned a little bit of that they felt like they were naive, especially the friend of Ellen. She said she didn't really notice it, but now and we'll listen to it here in a bit, she says her 40-year-old self now, looking back on it, says, yeah, there were signs that she always had to get permission to do stuff, and we know that's kind of a red flag there.
The medical examiner also noted that Ellen's body had bruises in various stages of resolution and found marks indicative of strangulation. These injuries have never been explained. There's also been speculation that Sam's family may have been able to sway the police investigation due to their connections. Sam's uncle, a prominent lawyer at the time, who is now a judge, was granted access to the apartment to collect Ellen's belongings following the police's departure. Sources have stated, but it's not been confirmed, that the evening of Ellen's death, Sam called his uncle, possibly, it is believed, before he even phoned the police. According to investigator Tom Brennan, the crime scene, including Ellen's computer and cell phone, was left unsecured with the property owner and building security manager in the apartment until the medical examiner arrived. Then the apartment was promptly deep cleaned, and it was Sam's uncle that was allowed entrance to retrieve Ellen's cell phone, work laptop, and personal laptop. He did not promptly return the items to her family at Ellen's funeral as they had wanted. What he did manage to do...
So, clearly red flags. Family member coming in who's a lawyer and removing stuff that belonged to Ellen. I can't imagine that happening in something. And I mean, this was 2011. I just can't see how they had botched this up so bad. But clearly he had connections, which eventually going to come back to bite them. This poor family, obviously, if you don't know them, this is the mother and father of Ellen. And they've been outspoken since day one. Fighting to get them to relook at the case, change the medical report, even if it's just from self-inflicted to undetermined. That's a win.
At Ellen's funeral, as they had wanted. What he did manage to do, all is not lost. The Greenbergs filed a lawsuit based on what they say should constitute new evidence to have the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office officially alter Ellen's manner of death once again to either undetermined or, ideally, to homicide. In October 2021, the case was heard in court. Marlon Osborne, the original medical examiner, was deposed.
If it could be proven that one or more of the wounds that Ellen sustained could not have been inflicted by her... Objection. Would you agree with me then the manner of death of suicide would be improper or incorrect?
I would have to agree.
There was also issues of not enough blood at the crime scene, which just didn't consist of somebody being stabbed over 20 times. You would think it would be pretty brutal. No, I want to be respectful, and so I kind of covered up the crime scene photo, which you can find online, obviously, but there's not much. I mean, there's kind of a pool of blood here. Obviously, I've got it blacked out, and then, some different blood that's kind of, along the cabinets and on the floor. But for somebody that stabbed over 20 times, you would think there would be a lot more blood, and that was something that they were concerned with. The family and people that started looking into this case, that felt like something was off.
Forward to a non-jury trial, but no date has yet been set. In response to the family's pleas, the Attorney General continues to say they do not have legitimate new evidence and therefore no reason to reinvestigate the case.
Paul, I don't know if you are desensitized to it yet, if you've listened to it so many times, but I want to apologize. I hate dragging you through that, but it's evidence we cannot ignore.
Thank you, Nancy. My perspective on this whole thing is the fact...
All right, so we're going to skip this so we can get to the new interviews.
Lawyers, one working for the state of... As far as we can go...
Today, Mitch's turn of 13 years to challenge the suicide and investigate.
She's gone.
So,
Racing
the biggest red flag, I mean, there's so many red flags, but the one that sticks out the most to me is this lock on the door that they take a picture of. So here's a better look at it here. And here it is zoomed in. And let me actually pull up the one so I can even zoom in further. So if this was broken, and we're going to look at an example here in just a second, I thought maybe there's a chance that maybe they took this photograph and they put 2 screws in it, because this has 4 screws. So obviously it's 2 pieces. Usually this one here that has the thing, you've got one side's the hook and then one side's the latch. The hook usually has 4 screws. This one typically has 3. So this one would likely be held down better. And then obviously it's going to be in the door, which the door, is going to be firm. Whereas the other piece, if it's going into the trim, a piece of trim is not very thick. And I'm not an expert, but I put it in frames for a little bit, and doors. the frame gets nail gunned into the stud behind it. Now, the screws that they give you are not very long. They'll go through the trim, and they'll go into the stud a little bit, which stud a 2x4, but not very far. Actually, it's quite surprising. They don't go in very. I'm sure you could get longer screws, which if I was going to do that, that's what I would do. But again, remember, he says that he knocks this door open. He doesn't say that he compromises it enough that he had disengaged it somehow, which that almost looks like he kind of did, but it doesn't look right. And anyway, so one of these two pieces should be just not even up on the wall. One of these two should be not in the picture. If he said what he said he did to many people, and here's a different, some looks at different security latches. They're most the same. Been in a hotel. This is what they had. Now this is interesting. I've lived in many apartments. I've never seen one with security latch, which is interesting. Swing bar, thank you, swing bar. Yeah. Here is Gavin doing a reenactment, which I love reenactments. And
so, according to his statement, he could.
Sorry, I had to turn down his voice.
I guess he could open up this, right? It was this that was blocking him out. So he would have been able to get the door open this far.
So yeah, he arrives there at 5:30. Look how much Gavin's talking to the person on the inside. I mean, I'm sorry, I have it turned down because I was actually not even going to have the audio. But he had the key to the lock. So he would have been able to unlock the door and have it open like this is an apartment. This isn't very big. You know, she's only going to likely be in the kitchen, living room, or maybe the bedroom, bathroom. But probably in that order. And he would have been like, hey, you know, what are you doing? You okay? You know, like, but there's no mention.
Try to put my shoulder into this and see what happens, and then see if my hypothesis is correct. I've never done this. I hope.
And this was no surprise when I saw this. No surprise. And that's the trim coming off because the screws that go in on this one only go through the trim a little bit and into the stud just barely. And I almost think the fulcrum point, almost like when you're jimmying something open, you know, use your leverage to your advantage. With this kind of being open, you know, all the forces going against this, because you're pressing above against this. And so really, you know, this is getting probably the most force between the two objects. And
so he would have been able to get the door open this far. So I'm going to try to put my shoulder into this and see.
And you can even see what I'm trying to say. Even when he just pushes it a little bit, you see this gets tugged more than this. Because obviously this is getting more force. Where this is just solid. I mean, this thing isn't going anywhere. This hook, that thing wasn't going anywhere unless it wasn't properly screwed in. I'm sure 99 out of 100 times, if it's screwed in that same way, you're going to have the same results. Because, one, it goes into the trim just a little bit. And then because it's going through trim and only into the stud just a little bit, it's not really secured. And, again, trim is really just screwed in with some nail guns, maybe some caulk. That's it. And they're pretty malleable.
Admit suicide. Of her spine.
I love how I just keep going to these interviews and I go right to the word I don't want them using. Anyway, I'm going to pass this and we'll listen to the interviews. So we almost have 100 people in here. Thank you guys so much. If you guys would like me to continue doing lives, if you guys would love to hit that like button, we do have plenty of ways to maybe donate, PayPal, Venmo. Yeah, I love doing lives, but it's tough to spend, multiple hours. And yeah, so anyway, if you'd like to support this channel, there are many ways to do so. But let's continue on. Of course, the murder weapon.
And you're talking about from left to right. However, if you go...
And I love Joseph Scott Morgan's take on this, but I want to get to the interview so we can break down some more inconsistencies. Okay, so here is Allison Stern.
Over her body, her right arm, leg, and abdomen.
Who is right-handed, your right arm. And who could keep stabbing themselves after 3 fatal stab wounds?
And what did you think when you found out that it was changed to suicide?
I remember the day I found that out. Sam actually called me to tell me, and I thought, wow. Like, I didn't know why he was calling me to tell me. And I didn't believe it at that point because I'd already known all these other facts. I knew about the 20 stab wounds. As far as, like, how that happened, who did it, I had no idea, but I knew it wasn't suicide.
When you met with Sam or talked to Sam, did he ever give you, like, a timeline or, like, what he saw when he went in?
Yeah.
Did he describe it to you?
Oh, yeah.
And what did he say?
So I remember, again, sitting with him, I think this was January 28th after the funeral. And I remember him saying he, had just gone to the gym. He had, left Ellen in the apartment, and I had asked, like, was there a fight or anything? He said no, she was just really stressed with work. And so he left. When he came back, he said it was about a half hour later, and he, went to use his key to open, and he said that the door was latched. I actually had written all this down, so I just looked back, through my notes to refresh my memory. So it was latched. He said that he, called her name, thought maybe she was napping or in the shower. He said he called her mom then to see if, she mentioned anything to her mom, and she hadn't heard anything. Then he said at that point he went downstairs to the front door, or to the security, and asked if maintenance was there and they could help him get into the apartment. And they said, maintenance is gone for the day.
Yeah, see, I can't believe I missed that. Again, living in apartments most of my life, and yeah, I mean, usually they are 5:30. Most places, at least here in Utah, 5:30, they're gone. Maybe they're there sometimes seldomly for 30 minutes after, but usually by 6, they are gone. And usually it's just maybe just finishing up some last things. But yeah, usually maintenance, because maintenance, we usually start even before the office, because they'll kind of clean up the ground. So they get here maybe a half hour. I mean, I'm sure every place is different. But they'll usually start a little bit before the office does, because they'll usually clean up the grounds around the apartment complex. If it's wintertime, they'll probably shovel sidewalks, whatever. During the summertime, clean up any trash. And so, yeah, and then, of course, during the day, then they work on work orders. And then you'll usually have a emergency maintenance guy who usually sometimes will live there. That way they're just there. That's on call. But yeah, in this case, he tells them, and he tells the detectives, he tells this lady here that he went down there to speak with the security guard. And in one of them, and I'm not sure if it's all the statements, but one of them even says that he brings up the security guard with him. So if that's true, if the security guard comes with him, where in the hell is the security guard, like, during the 911 call? How come you don't hear him, in the background, like, holy shit, there's a woman stabbed,
And he said the advice he was given was to use his shoulder. If he's going to try to break open the door, use his shoulder. So then he went back up And he said he used his shoulder. He said it took one, maybe two times. He didn't remember. And the force that he used swung open the door, and he spun around and was facing the kitchen. And
so that right there confirms it. And that's from like different, what he told the detectives. So he even tells her the same thing, that he literally busted it open. Because I thought, well, maybe there's a chance he could have compromised the one end enough that he then pulled it back to where he could kind of like, without having the door closed all the way, he could kind of unlatch the lock, the swing bar. Thank you for reminding me earlier. But he tells everybody that he kicks it open, just like we saw in Gavin Fish's reenactment. So one of the two pieces there shouldn't be both pieces up on that wall in that crime scene photo. It makes no sense. So Alan Hinkle with the $10 super sticker. Thank you so much, Alan. That means the world to me, buddy. I appreciate it. Please show Alan some love in the chat. I can't do without your guys' support, so I appreciate it. I would love to go out and help and search, but it's been tough. It's been slow. It's been really slow this month.
saw her.
Thank you, Alan, so much, man. The world, you're a legend. But again,
Hypothesis is correct. I've never done this. I hope it doesn't hurt. Here we go. Ready?
how hard would it be the officers to just whoop? Took Gavin 5 minutes to figure that out.
Okay, well.
And it really looks like
Maybe 2 times.
I wanted to. Almost looks like, and I didn't get enough time, but. Oh, I put the photo away. Dang it. 1 second. I'm trying to enhance this because, I mean, it's an okay photo. Obviously, it's 2011. I would say it's pretty decent for its time. It's zoomed in, but almost what doesn't make sense is, and I wish I could maybe put this into paint, but there's something that really does not look right. And I'm just going to point it out here. Something that I almost want to make a video on because it just does not look right at all. How this would have broken. Notice how this is like paint coming off here. Yeah, it goes right here. And it's like the screws. Look at the screws. They're not even touching. This one almost looks like it's kind of in the wood, but this screw is clearly like just out. Like this, there's no hole. There's no damage right here where that screw like got yanked out of. So I almost think he unscrewed these and then took a flathead and then kind of pried. There's almost, and I blocked it, but I can undo it. That almost looks like, and I'm going to try to run this through some AI enhancement, see if I can see any more detail, but almost looks like, oops, right here, you can almost see what looks like flathead marks. Again, it's tough to say, but there are what looks like flathead marks. But why doesn't this line up right here? Shouldn't this area come out to here? You guys see what I'm talking about? Like, that doesn't make sense at all. But again, it just tells me that he had likely taken a flathead and jimmied it. I mean, this just makes no sense. Anyway, I digress. Let me know in the chat what you think, but I think there's a lot more beyond reenactments that you could do. So here's the security guard and what his story is.
Do you know where that story came from?
Came from him. He know I didn't walk up with him, and I get angry when I hear that, because for him to rely on me or any concierge who would have been there at that particular time, said a lot about him.
We were just at Ellen's.
On me or any concierge who would have been there at that particular time.
So here in the report it says 911 call made at 6:33. The solid bar door guard was broken. consistent with Mr. Goldberg's report of forcing in the door. An apartment security man was reportedly present during Mr. Goldberg's entry. If you don't know what I'm getting at, he supposedly has a security guard with him as he's breaking down this door, which I guarantee if they worked for the apartment, they would have been like, hell no, we don't want to have to, because guess who's going to have to fix that? The maintenance guy. The guy that he's alleging to bring up. Now, they mentioned security man, which is really weird. Like, most apartments don't have a security man. Now, I'm not saying not all, but like, because it's supposedly I don't know. I guess some do. I don't know. Usually it's maintenance. It could have been security, but if it's a security man, either way, if he's standing there when he's kicking this door open, the next thing he does is finds Ellen's body on the ground. Where is he in this 911 call? Like where's his firsthand account of him being there? Like, you look at the report and there's just so many red flags, and it's like, these detectives are idiots.
We were just at Ellen's best friend's house, and she was telling us that she talked to Sam afterwards, and he said that the security guard advised him to use his shoulder to bust open the door.
Really? Okay, if that's what he says, truth don't need no company, man. You know, if that's what he said, that's what it is for him. My cameras and my guy, I was sitting at the front desk.
So yeah, he says they had cameras there. I know somebody asked that in the chat earlier. So yeah, I wonder. I mean, because some places the only time they would have security is at, like, if they have a security gate. That's the only time. Like I said, I've lived in a bunch of apartments. Now, I haven't lived in, like, fancy ones, so maybe, you know, the higher ends have some security. But usually you see them, like, they're working the gate. Again, I don't know. Maybe it's because it looks, you know, because it's a lot of the apartments here. Now, they've changed. You know, they're just 1 to 2 floors. Now they're like, you know, these massive hotels. And they're built everywhere now. But yeah, anyway, he's got a security camera. So again, they would have the evidence that nobody that he didn't leave his post like he said he did.
Advise him not to go upstairs. I know he lied. You know he lied. But why doesn't his system say, well, did anybody ever ask him, why did you lie on the guard? That was, we have proof to say that he, you know, I don't know if anybody talked to him that way. I don't know why they don't talk to him that way. I certainly would talk to him that way, because if I applied my street knowledge to it, I can get to him. See, what the f*** you talking about, man? You know, I can do to him like that. They can arrest me later.
Oh, man, that flip. Mm-hmm. Whew. Man, did that interview, wow, that got heated quick. Yeah, poor guy. I don't blame him, no. You know, he's being called a liar. Yeah, you got Sam saying that this guy's supposedly with him. Like, of course, if there's 2 people, he's kicking down the door. I mean, he's going to find Ellen right there immediately. Like, they all should be connected. You know, what did he just go like, oh, you know, screw it, you know, a dead body? Yeah, we're used to that, you know. Gonna go back to my post. Rebecca says, how did this not fall apart way sooner? 13 years they've been fighting this. And I mean, that's in January, so I mean, it's 13 and a half or more, really. I mean, by the time they get an answer, if they do this year, I mean, they are getting the ball rolling. And that's why this case needs to be brought to the light, because you have a killer on the loose who's named Sam Goldberg, who is now remarried. I know I looked up some research on what he's been doing since. There's not a lot to look at. I'm sure if you deep dive, I'm sure you could find more, but, I'm sure he's probably, playing it safe now, but still, he's a killer and he needs justice. The family needs justice. And
he said her back and shoulders were kind of up against the lower cabinets. And he said her little fingers were blue. I remember him saying that her little fingers were blue. And he said he called 911 immediately, and they were going to instruct him to do CPR, so he moved her to the floor, and at that time he saw the knife.
You were questioned by the police at one point?
Yes, so the week of February 7th, I was back in town. I had been in New Orleans for work. I came back, and I was asked by the homicide unit to come down to Philadelphia, I believe it was the Race Street location, so that they could question me, obviously, just as more of a, what information could they get as a friend. And I was interviewed by there. It was the strangest feeling to be in there, because I'm like, this is not my life. What am I doing here? I remember just feeling like they didn't care what I was saying. It was almost like they were checking the box that they had me there. And at one point, he even said, "Are you trying to point fingers here?" And I said, "No, I'm just answering your questions and giving you the information that I know. I'm only giving you fact." So, yeah.
So did you feel like they had already had their mind made up about what happened?
Yeah, this was like, I have to just do this. Let me get this over with. Like, I didn't feel like they were interested in what I had to say. And again, not that I wasn't there that day, so I have no information of what happened, but I knew what he had told me.
And that's huge, especially because what he said, according to other reports, they don't make sense at all. And just having a basic investigation, a proper one, it would have seemed like his alibi, whatever, his story would have fell apart in minutes. Security guard was not with him. Why isn't he in the 911 call? Why is the lock, how's it not compromised completely? He said he kicked it in. He didn't say, because I've looked at it, I'm like, I wonder if maybe it just hasn't been mentioned and he compromised the latch in some way, and then closed the door, and then, unlatched the bar. But every story's the same. He opened it, and then he kicked it in, just like what we saw in the reenactment by Gavin. It's exactly, and it took him a couple tries or whatever. Exactly in the reenactment with Gavin Fish.
And I knew who, Ellen was, and I, knew a little bit about the apartment. I knew a little bit about their routines, but they had no interest in hearing from me.
Yeah, so now records are coming out. Is there any documentation of...
They probably didn't like her because they were probably asking her, so, when did she start getting depressed? Was there... any signs? Did she have any indication that she was going to take her, and I'm sure once, she wasn't going that route, they're like, oh, well, now we're just wasting our time because it's not going to help our investigation out.
Your conversation.
If she's saying, oh, yeah, my best, my friend, whatever, I'm not sure how, best friends or whatever, was, doing great, excited for the wedding. Yeah.
With police?
Nope.
There's no police report?
Right. Apparently the last that I've heard of the 5,000-page document that lawyers have gone through, there's no report in there of my interview with police. And I know for a fact I was there at homicide headquarters talking to Detective Harris.
But there's no document. Did you see him write something down?
Yes. I saw him write something down, and I was there. So whether or not he was writing, what he did with that paper, it should have still been documented that I was there.
I mean, all these years later, are you surprised that it's still at a standstill?
Yeah. I mean, it's a complete injustice here. It's just baffling how every time there seems to be a win and everything's going in the right direction, somebody, political, or very, financially savvy is putting a stop to it, and it's defying common sense.
Unbelievable. And Brian
So there's a little bit more. I think there's a little bit of the interview where she talks about, some signs of DV, which is absolutely terrible. And she even talks about how she had to ask permission. Ellen had to ask Sam's permission to do certain things. Probably go out with friends. Clearly being possessive. And yeah, just terrible. And I'm sure if they would have done a proper investigation, they would have learned that. And then going back to the fact that a lot of these experts that are coming out saying, like, there's even in the report, oh gosh, you know what I forgot? In the report itself, holy Hannah, I completely forgot. This is one of the big things I wanted to go over. This blew my mind that this was in the report. I have to find this. Give me 1 second, guys. I don't want to forget about this. This blew my mind. Not to mention your 20 plus stab wounds. Where is it? No, it's further down, maybe. I know it's in here. Might be towards the bottom. Oh, right here. Right here in the report. Medical examiner, let's see. Yeah, because this is... Yeah, this is a medical examiner report. There was evidence of... let's see, wait. Number 2. Okay, so number 1 talks about evidence of stab wound. The cranial and the brain, and obviously some places where normal person that was going to take their life, it's not normal. But number 2, there was evidence of strangulation. There was a mark over the front of her neck, which was consistent with a fingernail mark. Fingernail. So, I mean, is she choking herself and stabbing herself? I mean... she's going to go all out. There was multiple bruises under the neck and in the strap muscles over the right of the neck. So if you were right-handed, that would be your left, right? Yeah. Anyway, but obviously you'd probably... Anyway... I was just trying to think about that. I wonder if he's left-handed. There were multiple bruises over the body. Some which were fresh. Many which were older. So, I mean, they could just take 2 seconds to, read this report. Go, I wonder if there's some history in DV. The patterns were consistent with a repeated beating. It's right there. Black and white. All the signs right there in this report. Unbelievable. Continuing on here. I got just a little bit more. Ellen says, do you think the cops saved the evidence? That's a good question. I mean, there is some reports out there. Yeah, that's a great question. Could her husband still get convicted? Oh, that's a good question, Ellen. Yeah, like, did they save the knife? Because they said there was no DNA on the knife, so he was probably wearing gloves. The report speaks for itself, so there would be homicide. He was there. I mean, he was there. Like, even though he said he went to the gym's at the complex, so he's not more than, 100 yards, I don't know, 200 yards, because it doesn't look like a huge place. Less than 100 yards vertically, however you want to put it, from the apartment. So, he doesn't have much of an alibi than the gym, but again, we don't know exactly what time she was attacked, only that, she last messaged somebody at 3 something. Yeah, that's interesting. But at the very least, if they could rule it a homicide, they could at least get the ball rolling. But yeah, that would be a tough battle for sure. Yeah. Black Witter with the $1.99. Thank you so much, Black Witter. You are a legend and a sweetheart. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Flag Girl, good to see you. Hey, Chris, how are you? Doing well. Good to see you, Flag Girl. I see somebody, but I can't find him. There's Connie. Good to see you, Connie. Thank you so much for the $20 super sticker. You are so sweet and a legend yourself. Thank you so much for the support. There we go. I thought I broke my chat.
And joins me live now from Philadelphia.
Okay,
Two things
just
are
a
unbelievable,
little bit
that you
more
were able
here.
to track down all these people and get those incredible interviews and what they actually said. Let's just start with that building management security guard. 13 years later, Brian, he seems crystal clear in his memory of what happened.
He is, and he's very emotional, Ashley. I mean, he almost really broke down at one point. He's disturbed by the whole thing, and he's upset.
I'm just gobsmacked by the interview, because at first I thought maybe the only inconsistency was the story that Sam Goldberg told the police, which was, I went back up to the front door of the apartment I shared with my fiance, and the building security guard accompanied me when I broke down the door. Clearly that was a lie, according to the guard. He said, I never was there. I told him not to do that. But also the fact that he said the guard told him to use his shoulder and that he did it twice, according to Ellen's friend. He said, just not true. I didn't do that.
Yeah, and that was Ellen's friend Allison who said that.
Yeah, and that makes no sense, because even if though it was a guard, I'm sure they would know that, like, maintenance will do anything. I mean, a lot of apartments, I mean, at least the ones I lived in, they're cheap. Well, not just, they're always trying to cut corners on saving money. And, and it just makes no sense, if they have somebody that can have can get the equipment to unlock the door, it just makes no sense that they would tell them, oh yeah, just break it on down, break a couple windows while you're at it. We don't mind. We got insurance, it'll cover it.
When she talked to Sam, Sam said that he used the shoulder to push the door in, and when we asked the guard about it, he almost laughed. He's like, no, I would never say that. I never told him to push the door in. I never left the concierge desk in the lobby of the condo. And he says he told the police that. He says he told the police that early on.
I just can't understand how that wouldn't be something that factors into this suicide reclassification. It's confounding. So when you spoke with Ellen's best friend, I did notice something that stood out. She said that Sam said to her that when he went down to the gym, they hadn't been having an argument. There was nothing wrong. She was just a little stressed with work. But it seems to me that Ellen's best friend had some different feelings about the relationship between Ellen and Sam. What'd she say?
Yeah, Ashley. So they had been best friends since 5 years old. Grew up together, went on trips together. They were roommates. They were very, very close. They were both engaged at the same time to be married. She told me they had actually been wedding dressed.
Oh, okay. Now I get where. All right. Grew up as kids. When I heard this, I was multitasking. Okay, so I had to contradict. I contradicted myself. I thought when they mentioned that meant Sam and Ellen, but this is Ellen and the friend. So, okay, that makes sense.
The Saturday before Ellen died, and that she was emotional. She was crying at one point during the wedding dress shopping, that she was not herself. And at the time, she just thought, well, maybe she was having a rough time with work, didn't really think that much of it. But she says, after everything that happened, she says she started to put two and two together. Listen to what she told me.
When she was with Sam, I just noticed this other side of her that was asking, permission for things. Just, we would want to make plans. She said, oh, let me ask Sam.
Was there ever...
And I guarantee you, when she went to go get interviewed by the police and they were looking for, so when did the depression start? When did, stuff relating to that kind of stuff happen? And what's the last thing, related to that kind of situation? And then she's like, no, she was doing fine and was looking forward to the wedding, maybe a little anxious. And then starts talking about, Sam seemed possessive. And then they're like, oh, well, this isn't going to help.
Looking back, anything that made you think maybe she was being abused?
My 40-something-year-old brain says yes. Looking back, the permission asking, absolutely. Now that seems like there was some kind of control going on there.
Something.
But guess what? Okay, Brian, I have this question about the whole thing smacks of why and how. Every other investigation in America, at least the bare minimum is done. Why not in this case? And I keep coming back to the connections that Sam Goldberg had. He had an uncle who was a lawyer and a judge. He had a cousin who was also a lawyer, allegedly had connections to Governor Josh Shapiro, who at the time was a DA. They are all, putting out their statements saying that they were legitimately involved and did nothing wrong. But why else would this be such a boondoggle?
Yeah, they need to bring these guys down. What is the other Shapiro now? Is he still the governor? I know people.
Yeah, well, Josh
flag him or hashtag
Shapiro,
him.
by the way, the governor who was the AG who investigated for 4.5 years, still won't respond to any of our emails. So we don't know what he thinks, and he hasn't talked to the family either, which they are very upset about. But it's interesting. I mean, there's different theories, the connections you talked about, but a lot of other people close to Ellen just feel this was really shoddy police work, that they were lazy. There was a big, massive snowstorm going on when she was found. Which they think may have played something into this. I think it was like feet and feet of snow where they're not able to get the proper resources out there. It could have just been shoddy police work, but why now 13 years have gone by? I mean, remember, the parents have spent $700.
Any just average person can look and just see that there's enough red flags that that just don't make sense. And sixth floor. Oh, so it is 6th floor. I thought it was 6th floor. It doesn't look like it from the one view. Maybe there's different buildings or something like that. Maybe there's more than what it appears. I thought it was 6, Kiki. And it's a false balcony. Yeah, so it's basically there's no real balcony so there's no way another intruder could have came in where they're at. And I mean, we've seen several pictures of the apartment complex. Just play this last little bit by Joseph Scott. I think he brings up, I love him, amazing forensic expert, and brings up such great points.
Certainly fatal. Stab wound H, happy. Fatal. Stab wound number 2, very likely fatal. Stab wound K had to be inflicted with a serrated abrasion, but I find that the wounds are diametrically opposed to each other regarding trajectory path. In other words, there are vertical stab wounds, there are horizontal stab wounds, there are oblique stab wounds. One that bothers me the most, actually two, is the one basically on top of the head. How do you attack yourself on top of your head?
Yeah.
And the wound where her dura of her spine is cut. How do you...
So again, obviously you can find the actual police photo. I just kind of blocked it out just to be respectful, but really there's not a lot of blood. Again, somebody got stabbed over 20 times. You got so many liters of blood in you, and again, they felt like there wasn't as much. And there was an expert who I think I skipped through accidentally, but she says the only reason that would be is because the heart is not beating anymore, most likely from possibly pre-strangulation, and then he stabbed her to make it look like she was taking her life, and then clearly he had his frustration because over 20 times it's overkill. And how many cases have we seen that? And it's usually somebody, a lover, a family member, somebody close to the victim when it comes to a case where you've got these kind of wounds. And the detectives just couldn't. It's just unbelievable. Heather Wither, good to see you. How does one person put any force on the last wound described, especially female, potentially smaller forearms? Oh yeah, I mean, there's people that try to, here's just kind of a look at like how ridiculous if someone were to kind of reenact this, but not, obviously not with a real knife, but this is what they're claiming she was doing multiple times, like. I mean, that just looks like you'd have to be double jointed to even accomplish such a feat and to get the pressure. Because it is a fairly long knife. Now, it wasn't this, I don't think it was this big, but I think it was still this long or close to it. I mean, not once, not twice. I can't remember how many in the back of the head. But again, all to take your life. I mean, you were trying to go out the worst possible way and make a mess for your loved ones. The logic is just gone. I could reach behind me but not drive forward. Yeah, right. And then again, I forget how long that knife, it's a steak knife, typical size. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And yeah, that's a great question or a great statement. And I know Dee had mentioned it as well. Is because it has no hilt. For anybody who doesn't know what a hilt is, I'm sure most of you guys do, but anybody who doesn't know what a hilt is, I don't know if I got a knife in this one that has a hilt. A hilt is where you have, the piece. So if this was the handle, the hilt is the piece that kind of comes in like a T at the bottom. So it blocks, usually on like a K-bar, bigger knives. So it blocks you from your hand slipping up and going into the blade. So if you were stabbing somebody, if it didn't have the hilt, your hand, because you stab too deep and the knife starts getting lodged in there and you try to pull out or, try to grab, and your hand's going to be sliding back and forth and cutting yourself, essentially. I wonder, and I guarantee you they didn't take any pictures of his hands. I guarantee you there was probably, a cut on his hand or something. But we'll never know. So like, I think Ellen asked or somebody, will they be able to charge him even if they get this changed over? Let's look at what somebody asked if they have a date set. Let's look at it real quick. I know that they're going to look at it. Update. August 8th. Let's see. Very excited by legal review of her death. This was August 8th. I think this was kind of around the time that I did my live on her. Let's see if they have something. I'm sure it's got to be this year, maybe. Okay, so the court announced on Tuesday that it would examine whether the family has legal standing to challenge the medical. Now, I thought they already agreed on that part. Does anybody in the chat know? Is there a court date? Okay, so he added that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, because that's right, it's the Supreme Court that's doing this, accepts only about 100 to 3,000 requests a year. So the family feels, oh my God, they've been waiting 13 years, Jesus. Feels that the case is being taken, so the family feels that the case is being taken seriously. Their lawyer is preparing legal briefs to submit to the court. So I don't know if there's a time frame, just other than I think, and the last time that I looked this up is that, they said that they were going to look into it, but I don't know if there was like really a time frame. You know, I think it's kind of different with Supreme Court, and I don't know, maybe they give them a date eventually. Again, it's kind of out of my area expertise, but you know, at the very least, they've got the ball rolling. Let's check Twitter real quick before we go. And just a couple more things before we, after we finish with her, about what's coming up. Let's see if they have anything. There's the interview. Duchess and me over a decade after a tragedy. Oh my gosh, spent $700K over a decade fighting for their daughter's justice. That is terrible. Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, I'm not seeing any dates. Let me look at chat. Anybody know in chat? Yeah, that's as far as I know. Is yeah, they just agreed that they're going to look at it, but no kind of time frame at this time. Oh wait, what's this say? See dates on the Huh. Anyway. Yeah, so maybe, you know, I'm sure down the road we'll hear more, but man, what a botched case. And yeah, to think, even if it does get switched, would they be able to charge the real killer after 13 years? Did they keep anything? I mean, no DNA on the knife. Maybe there's some smoking gun in there that they could find. Does his DNA? Yeah, no DNA on the knife from him. So yeah, he had to have worn gloves. I mean, if you look at the timeline, just one more time here, I do wonder if she was killed earlier than maybe some think. Her last really known sign of life was technically at 3:47, and that could have been her Sam at that point, to be honest. Her last outgoing phone call was at 2:33, so really I'd say 2:33, so about an hour after she got home. Sounds like there was probably an argument. And then see, the fact that he goes to the gym, to me, is a sign that that's like an alibi. That was like a backup alibi for him. That if they didn't believe that it was self-inflicted and they were going the homicide route, he had an alibi and he had to break in the door, which I don't know how they would explain that. How would the killer and then lock the security latch on his way out? He can't go out a balcony or anything. They're up stories, There's only one way in, one way out. So, but I still think that gym thing was, in my opinion, a potential alibi if they didn't go with the self-inflicted route. Yeah, of course. Thank you, first one. Yeah, I do. I definitely tried to switch it up. Unfortunately, some cases just don't, some people, I think most people, of course, have good intentions, but fortunately, there's just other cases people are just glued to, and I try to switch it up because, cases like these need to be brought to the forefront because, people are talking about the other cases, so, we need to bring up some that aren't, in the limelight right now. Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, he did. He told the operators that her hands. Let's listen to this one last time, and then I've got one last thing to.
Oh God!
What's coming up here?
Hello.
Yeah, hi, okay.
Willing to do CPR with
Let me
me?
back this up a
Look at
little
her
bit.
chest. I need you to calm down, and I need you to look at her chest. It's really.
I really don't think she is.
Listen to me. Someone's on the way. Look at her chest. Is she flat on her back?
She's on her back, so I
Okay,
bring her.
look at her chest and tell me if it's going up and down, up and down.
I don't see her moving.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I don't.
Okay, I can tell you what to do, okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat
Oh,
on her.
God.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, okay.
Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there?
I have to, right?
Okay, so get her.
I have to, right? God, man, I wasn't looking forward to it.
Flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off. Okay? Kneel down by her side.
Oh, my God. Ellie, please.
Listen, you can't freak out, sir, because you gotta...
Okay, I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Oh, my God. She stabbed herself.
How do you get that? I mean, oh my God, how can these guys not listen to this phone call? Oh my God. How do you get that? How do you come to that conclusion when someone's bleeding profusely in multiple areas and a knife is sticking out of them? Ugh.
Where?
She fell with a knife. Oh, no. Her knife's
Or
sticking
fell.
out.
What?
Either one is, oh my God.
There's a knife sticking out of her heart.
Oh, she stabbed herself?
I guess so. I don't know where she fell on it. I don't know.
Okay, well, don't touch it.
Okay, so I just let her down. Here now. I mean, what do I do?
No, I mean, you can't. If the knife is in her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR at this time.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Police, which operator?
277.
Is someone coming here?
Yes, they are. You said 4601 Flat Rock, right?
Yes.
Okay, someone's on the way. And the knife is still inside?
Wait, sir, what?
The knife is still inside of her?
Yes, I didn't take it out.
Look at her chest.
Oh my God. And then that left there. I mean, come on. Seriously.
That's what area
It's in her chest. It looks like it's right in her heart.
Okay, someone's on the way out there. Okay, just get.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay,
How old is
thank you.
she?
She's 27.
27. And there's no sign of life at all?
I'm surprised you got her birthday right. Or her age.
No, please don't be. What?
Been trying to her arm and tell me if she responds to pain.
Ellie. She's not. Her arm and her hands are still warm. I don't think.
See, that and whoever mentioned that earlier, I think was a great mention because that's why I go back to this, is I really think she was dead before he went to the gym. And he wanted to mention that she was warm because obviously she'd been dead for, an hour. Again, I don't know when the body temperature starts dropping and when you're cold or warm, but I'm assuming it goes pretty fast. So I do wonder if he mentioned that on purpose. I really think she was likely dead before he went to the gym, but that's just my opinion, of course.
That means, but there's blood everywhere.
I know, but you can't, and the knife is still inside of her. How far? Can you see how far it went in?
It looks pretty deep.
All right. Yeah, I know. She, very beautiful lady. First grade teacher, everybody going to be kind of nervous for first grade. I know you got kindergarten, but, still kind of remember my first grade teacher. As far as the first younger grades, the first grade teacher probably stuck out more than 1 through 4, and was super nice. And yeah, it's absolutely terrible. And then what the family's going through, I just can't imagine. I really hope. Makes you wonder what these detectives, what else did they work on that may also need to be looked into because they were just too lazy to do what they're getting paid for. It's pathetic. Yeah, the only thing when mentioned was that the neighbors heard when he was kicking the door, but they never mentioned any screaming. Keep in mind, she was most likely strangled. And then he stabbed her to death. And that's why there's lack of blood. So she wouldn't have been screaming. Because, of course, he strangled her. Of course, that's my opinion, but that's going off kind of what's really in the medical report. If you just kind of, you don't even have to read between the lines. It's right there. Sticks out like a sore thumb. I don't know how these guys got it so wrong. Moonchow says I can't get past the CPR. Oh, I had the CPR. Yeah. I get some people don't know CPR, but I don't know. I mean, I've known CPR for a long time. I mean, we practiced it in school. Maybe I guess it just kind of depends on where you grew up and, but, it's in the movies all the times. Yeah, I don't know. Of course, there's a giant knife sticking out of her chest, so you didn't want to, I don't know. So anyway, huge shout out to Jennifer, Alan, Connie, and Black Witter, especially Alan and Connie for those donations, and Black Witter. Again, I spent a lot of time setting up live shows, and I would love to continue doing lives, but unfortunately, sometimes it gets slow, and it's just, I'd love to continue doing them, but unfortunately, sometimes the videos that I do don't do as well. But if you'd like to go check out, I did a video on the trying to look for it here. Where is it? Where are you? Lady Bird Lake. Lady Bird Lake. There was a 911 call that came out. If you're not familiar with Lady Bird Lake in Austin, it's very fascinating. I did kind of a small breakdown on it, but they released the 911 call, which is very rare because there's been over 20 bodies found in Lady Bird Lake. This is in Austin, Texas. Or, excuse me, did I say 20? How many bodies did I say? I was thinking of stab wounds. There's been over 10 bodies found in the past 2 years. Yeah, over 10 bodies found. Got a lot of numbers going in my head here. And most of them they label as accidental drownings, but the reports on them they're hard to find. They won't release them. And it's really weird. And they also noticed that there's kind of an uptick. So there'll be an uptick of bodies found in this lake, right, in Austin, Texas. And then when it slows down in Chicago, they notice there's an uptick of bodies found in water, drownings, apparently accidental drownings. And then when it slows down in Chicago, it picks up in Austin, and it goes back and forth. Now, could it just be a coincidence? Sure. But if you're familiar with Smiley Face Killer, it's kind of the same concept, and it's really strange case. But the locals, especially the locals, believe that there is what they call the Rainy Street Ripper, and they believe this person has been responsible for many of the bodies found in the water the past 2 years. And again, they released a 911 call, and it's interesting because the guy that calls in, he's not the guy that calls it in. He actually tells a Holiday Inn. He goes to the nearest hotel and tells this lady at the Holiday Inn at the front desk. And then they do eventually talk to him. And I don't know, like I said, I don't want to say he sounds suspicious, but his demeanor's different, doesn't mean he's guilty of anything, but it's just kind of interesting. And the other thing is they just don't ever release stuff. In any of the cases that are related to Lady Bird Lake, they're very close to the vest, even though they're supposed to be accidental drowning. So why aren't you able to, how come the public can't look up these records? And yeah, it's really strange. And then there's some that they change where, like, there was a guy that was bleeding. There was some blunt force trauma leading up to him going into the water. Then they say, oh no, well, he just shot himself and ended up in the water. Just some really strange things. And so some experts believe that they may be trying to keep this close to the vest, and they don't want to scare the public. But yeah, so interesting. So I put that video out today. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I also have a second channel, Mob Crew Paranormal. If mods want to put that in the chat. I've been a little bit behind this week, so I'm going to be putting out possibly 2 videos this weekend, but probably tomorrow, if not Sunday, it will be out. But the Patreons and members, they should have it tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Friday, or Saturday, excuse me. And yeah. And then again, just one last time, I do have PayPal, Patreon, other ways to support the channel. I do have a GoFundMe. I'll have that up for probably at the end of the month. It hasn't been doing too well this month. I get it, probably people went on trips, but I would love to get back out there and search for Aidan, but unfortunately, went out a couple times last month, but it's just been really slow, and that's just sometimes how YouTube is. But I would love to, we found his shoes. I would love to find him, but fortunately, it's been a tough month. So yeah, 10 bodies. That's a dumping ground, right? Yeah, and then like I said, you've got the not only Austin thing going on, but you have Chicago, and like it's weird. Bodies start piling up in one area, and then they die down, and then the other area ramps up, that dies down, and then it just continues back and forth. Pretty fascinating. What do you think was off about his demeanor? Oh, in the 911 call with Lady Bird Lake. We could listen to it for just a second.
All I know is he was vomiting profusely and struggling to walk, stand up.
A 911.
So I only kind of connect this because there was a bystander that found another possible victim. He's not tied. Well, he is, but he's not because he didn't die. There's another victim in this story who is Jeff Jones. I was going to say Jim Jones. Jeff Jones. He was literally roofied, found near Lady Bird Lake, but luckily wasn't in the water. He was in a creek nearby. And he said that somebody, a bypasser, had found him and had reported it, but this bypasser was anonymous and stayed anonymous. And so I just thought it was kind of interesting. I'm like, just kind of his demeanor is a little bit different. Again, he's probably just traumatized. He just tried to save this guy's life. But it just seems off. Again, it's just something to listen to, see what you think. Let me know in the comments if you think it's off a little bit. But yeah, kind of different. Again, most likely just a great citizen. I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of it. That is trying to save somebody's life, but unfortunately, it's dark and he didn't want to get swept in too. But yeah. So. Oh, no worries, Black Widow. I understand. It's tough times, so no worries. But I do love you guys so much taking the time to watch the show. We'll be back here Sunday. Paranormal videos hopefully get out tomorrow. If not, it'll be Sunday. Again, I'll probably 2 videos because I had some issues with YouTube and I had to kind of restart my paranormal video. I'm so upset, and there's been some issues, once in a while YouTube, you have issues uploading stuff. I was uploading a Trump video that came out Wednesday, and I literally had it done Monday night, and it would not upload all the way through Tuesday until Wednesday, and it was just so frustrating to spend 10 hours on a video, and then it did okay, but it's kind of one of those things. It needs to kind of come out when I intended it to, and by the time it did, it's kind of like old news, and it's not a big deal as much. So there's always ups and downs to this job, but I still love it. And having my wonderful mods, Jennifer, Karen, Dee, Jocelyn, Karen, Copper Horse. I always forget a name, so I'm like, who do I leave out? Who do such an amazing job every week. And to my wonderful members, thank you guys so much for your support. I couldn't, especially when it's slow times like this, you guys are amazing to help to keep this channel going. And then to everybody else that's in here, just taking the time to comment and like, subscribe. You guys are legends. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. We will see you guys soon. Unless there's like some big updates, we'll go live. If not, probably set live for Sunday. And then usually every other day I upload. So there's usually content every day. So keep those notifications on. I always have content. Never lacking that, that's for sure. But with that, we're going to do an outro, and we'll see you guys soon.